I am a killer. That's a fact. That thought goes through your head. That thought doesn't leave. Actions of mine contributed to a man's death. And then afterwards, I did read the obituary for this man. He had children very young.
Everything became more like just going through the motions. He wasn't as invested at home with me or after our kids were born. So I was just waiting for him to get back to himself.
I definitely cried about this every day, going into work and going home. There's always a sense and a question of like, well, where's the justice in this situation? There's only one way to make this situation right. And that answer was suicide.
Physician suicide is a problem. We see bad things happen. We see people die. We see people lose their children. Like, those things have profound effects on physicians. When there are traumatic things that happen, helping the caregivers get through that is not usually the first thought.
I had all the materials. My plan was I was going to commit suicide. I'd just start an IV on myself, inject the medicines. I'd stop breathing. Things would take their course in 20 minutes, and that would be that.
I opened the door to our room, and there was a spiral-bound notebook and a laptop sitting on his spot on the bed.
I'm sorry I'm not there. I still love you.
And realized the bottom line was that he had killed himself or was about to kill himself. I didn't know what stage of his plan he was in. I was completely surprised because although he was obviously depressed for going on a couple of years, let's say, I didn't know that he had ever thought about it. I didn't know that he was capable of ever thinking about it. I was very angry that he would, from my perspective, destroy mine and his children's lives based on this.
The main thing I remember is she grabbed my hand, put it over her heart, and just said, well, can't you feel this? Why haven't you said anything? Why would you want to leave? I got tons of education on how to prevent disasters and accidents. I had no education on what to do if and when one happens to you.
I think in general, the medical profession contributes to the problem of physician depression and physician suicide. The numbers that we use for physician suicide don't have great data about them. They're mostly based on expert opinion. Suicide is a hard thing to track down because it's stigmatized, that it probably is hidden somewhat because of their status in a community. If a physician committed suicide, it might be reported as something else. Oh, Dr. Jones had an accident. In the research I'm doing now, I'm reading through literally thousands and thousands and thousands of reports of how people died and what situations were going on in their lives.
And what my research is showing is that, yes, it does look like physicians have a higher rate of suicide than the general population. It's worrisome in my mind because A, it's a group that you would expect to have access to care, and B, I know that I am probably way underestimating the numbers.
Most physicians are worried about reporting anything to the medical board. They want to be honest, but they're very, very afraid that if they admit to something, this may lead to a big investigation. I think boards are very concerned, understandably so, about patient safety, but we don't have any data that identifying that someone has a diagnosis makes it safer for patients.
In the past 3 years, you said the board has never revoked, denied, suspended, restricted, or placed on probation anybody for mental health.
Not that I'm aware of.
Why ask the question then?
That may be a question for the board and our department to review.
Even though the world out there thinks that we are somehow superhuman and make no mistakes, we're still human and we still make mistakes. Unfortunately, the consequences of our mistakes can be much more serious.
Recovery is possible. No matter what it is you think you've done. what's happened. It's one of the great parts of life.
Stared down at Whoville. Big Rich popped his eye.
I don't think he's distant, but I don't think we've recovered everything that was lost during that time. It's like an injury that hasn't fully healed.
It's still there. I know every day that there's 2 orphans. I know there's a widow. I don't know how much good you have to do, how much healing you have to do to make up for the harm you felt you'd done. I don't really ever want to reach the point where I feel like I've done enough, where it makes up for that.